Hey Bio20s, I'm back for another video, and today we're going to talk about the parts of the heart. So, to get into it, I just want to discuss what each part does, and then I'm going to show you a diagram and show you how blood actually flows through the heart. Then next video we'll discuss what actually causes the heart to beat, and what actually creates those electrical impulses and how all of that works. So, the heart itself, we know, is a muscular organ that pumps and moves blood throughout the body. It's surrounded by basically a fluid-filled membrane used for shock absorption and protection, and that's called the pericardium. So the heart actually has this pericardium surrounding it, giving it a nice layer of protection. The misconception about the heart is that the heart is one singular pump pumping blood to the body, and that's partially true. Yes, it pumps blood to the body, but it's actually two separate pumps. We have a left pump and a right pump. And those two pumps are separated by the septum. So, the right pump on the right side of your heart will receive deoxygenated blood from the body, so blood that's low in oxygen, and pump it to the lungs. The left pump will then get that oxygenated blood from the lungs and pump it to the rest of your body. Now, two circuits we're going to discuss here. We have the pulmonary circuit as well as the systemic circuit. The pulmonary circuit is that right side gaining blood, pumping it to the lungs, and then returning it to the left side. So when you think pulmonary, we want to think of lungs. The systemic circuit we want to think of as our body. It's the left side pumping blood to our body that's been oxygenated. So here's what it looks like. We have our pulmonary circuit. Notice how the deoxygenated blood is shown in blue. Now keep in mind, blood is not actually blue. It's red. And then obviously oxygenated blood would be just a brighter red. But we show blue and red to show the difference there. So deoxygenated blood in the right side of the heart is pumped to the lungs. We see the capillary beds in the right and the left lungs. And then the oxygenated blood is then returned to the left side of the heart. So we have a circuit to the lungs and then back from the lungs. Then when we look at our systemic circuit, we'll see the oxygenated blood pumped to the body, various capillary beds throughout the body, in your kidneys, in your digestive system, all throughout your body. And then the deoxygenated blood is then returned to the heart to the right side. Remember, arteries always carry blood away from the heart, and veins always carry blood towards the heart. So, in terms of the heart and its parts, the heart has four chambers, two on either side. So it has two atria and two ventricles. Now the atria, or the atrium, is a thin-walled chamber where blood first enters. So blood would enter into the right atrium or the left atrium. Then the blood will enter into the ventricles. And the ventricles are a more muscular chamber because now we have to push blood out to our arteries, whether that be our pulmonary artery or aorta, depending on where the blood is going. The vena cava we've mentioned already, but just as a recap, it's your main vein. We have the superior and the inferior vena cava. Superior vena cava would deliver deoxygenated blood from your upper body, whereas the inferior basically deoxygenated blood from anything below the diaphragm. And remembering that veins, while carrying blood up against gravity, use a couple of things to prevent the backflow of blood, using skeletal muscle contractions to push it up and one-way valves to prevent blood from flowing back down. Next, we have the pulmonary veins. Very important to note that the pulmonary vein is the only vein in the body that carries oxygenated blood. So this would be the vein going from the lungs to the heart. Then we have, of course, along with the pulmonary veins, we have our valves. So the valves are key here because just like in veins where valves prevent backflow, we have valves in our heart because we don't want blood going in the wrong direction. We want blood going in the correct direction, going from point A to point B. So when blood flows from an atria to a ventricle, it passes through the AV valve, the atrioventricular valve. When the blood flows through it, it's open. When it's done, the valve closes and prevents blood from flowing back through. This is a good thing. Then when blood flows from a ventricle to an artery, we have our second valve, which is known as our semilunar valve. And it's called that because it kind of looks like a bit of a crescent moon. So the semilunar valve's open, Blood leaves the heart, they close, so blood doesn't flow backwards. Finally, the two main arteries. We have the aorta, which is your main artery carrying blood from the heart to your body. This would be oxygenated blood. And then we have the coronary arteries. This would carry oxygenated blood from the heart. It's still going away from the heart technically, but then delivering it right back to the heart muscle itself. Because remember, the heart is a muscle and requires nutrients and oxygen. So what I'd like to do here is I just want to go through the parts of the heart and the blood flow through the heart. The thing to remember here is as we go through the different parts of the heart, I'm going to use blue to represent deoxygenated blood, and I'm going to use red to represent oxygenated blood. So we're going to start here with blood flowing into the right atria. It's deoxygenated and it's coming in through the superior and the inferior vena cava. So now we have deoxygenated blood filling up the right atria. This blood is going to flow into the right ventricle, and it's going to flow through the AV valve. So it's going to pass through that valve right there. This deoxygenated blood is then going to be pushed out through the left pulmonary artery as well as the right pulmonary artery. Now, this is still deoxygenated blood. So just like the pulmonary vein was the only vein in the body to carry oxygenated blood, the pulmonary artery is the only artery in the body to carry deoxygenated blood. So this would go to the lungs, to the right lung, and then this would go to the lung as well, to the left lung. In the lungs, the blood is going to be oxygenated, so we're going to switch colors here to red. And now this oxygenated blood returns to the heart. So we're going to return to the heart through the right and the left pulmonary veins. So this would be from the lungs. So that's from the lungs, and then this is also from the lungs. Now, we've entered into the left atria, and blood is going to be pumped through the AV valve one more time into the left ventricle. Now, you'll notice that this AV valve has a special name. It's called the bicuspid, whereas the AV valve on the right side is called the tricuspid. So two ways to differentiate between the two. From the left ventricle, blood is going to be pumped through the semilunar valve, and then out the aorta. And then it's going to connect to various arteries in the body. The aorta also runs down here, and that's going to go to the body. From there, the oxygen will be used. It will then be brought back through the vena cava. It will now be deoxygenated from the body. This is also from the body, and then we're right back to where we started. One more thing to mention before we end here. You'll notice that even when you look at this heart, the right side is, yes, technically on the left side of the screen, but take this heart, superimpose it to your chest, and you'll see that this is actually the right side, this is the left side. You'll also notice that here's the septum dividing the left side and the right side. The left side is far bigger than the right side. And this is also why when you hear a national anthem, or if you're in the States, you pledge allegiance, you always hold the left side of your chest. Why do you do that? Well, technically the heart is in the center of your chest, but the left side is a little larger, so it actually leans more to the left side. Why is the left side larger? Well, think about where the blood is going. The right side only has to push blood to the lungs. It's not that large of a trip, just to and back to the lungs and back. So the right side only has to go to the lungs, whereas the left side has to go to your entire body, whether it is your eye, whether it's your ear, whether it's your finger, whether it's your baby pinky toe, whether it's your quad muscle, whatever it ends up being, it needs to make it from the heart to all reaches of the body. That's why the left side is all larger than the right side. So that's all I have for you today. Our next lesson, we're going to focus on how does the heart actually beat? So what actually causes the heart to beat on its own? What are the mechanisms behind that? And then also the different structures in place that allow that to happen. So thank you for watching, and we'll chat soon.